Oh, so good. And here I am rolling up like, you know what I want to do? I want 45% less than the field of the two-time MVP, reigning finals MVP, reigning champion guy. Yeah, it was a great strategy on my part.
I didn't check the like post contest stuff. Who did you pay up for most last night?
Durant,
Okay.
which did not work the way that I would have liked it to. That ended up being a Booker day. But what are you going to do? It happens. It happens. That is what happens when you play DFS. Welcome, everybody, to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, October 25th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Greg Ehrenberg. We are brought to you by Bet365. And if you like the start of the NBA season yesterday, boy, are you in luck. 12 games on the slate, some ridiculous. We've got some weird pricing. I love these kind of days, but this is a chore of a slate in a big, big way. Greg, what's going on?
Yeah, we got the first slate in the books, and typically I don't like 2-game NBA slates, but you get forced to play them on opening night. And because like what else are you gonna do? We wait all these months for basketball. What are you gonna say? I'm gonna wait for the second slate of the year. And I won on FanDuel. I came in first in the $4, the $5, whatever the buy-in point was. I forget what it was.
Nice.
DraftKings was about neutral for me, but it was a good start to the season. And one thing that I do think helped me a good amount for the 2-game slates is one thing that's always been hard for me in the past is figuring out like how do I avoid playing lineups that are super duped? And that is one thing that a contest generator in The Sims to help me with yesterday was trying to weed out some of the lineups that were going to be duped, a massive amount of times on FanDuel and DraftKings last night and help me be profitable.
Nice. What was the chop on FanDuel?
It was I ended up making 10K.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I had
so
no idea.
It was like 30. It was like 30 people tied, which for
Sweet.
a 2-game slate is not bad.
No, not at all. It's different on. I mean, you get the extra roster spot, which helps on FanDuel, but much more rigid positionally. So you're kind of just forced into similar stuff. So you usually see more chops there. Vic said it in chat, but congrats to all the winners last night. Yeah, Steve, DeColtz, and Eddie, 1-800 Eddie, both were part of the chop on DraftKings. So kudos to them. You know who wasn't? Me.
It is one thing that's funny about DFS is it has a weird way of even the time. Well, if you lose, you feel like you lost. Even if you win, oftentimes you still kind of feel like you lost because the first thing I did, I was like, oh, cool, I won on FanDuel. And then I go look on DraftKings like, fuck, other guys I work with won more because they split on DraftKings where I split on FanDuel. And the split on DK was worth twice as much as a split on FanDuel. So then even then, I still have a way of looking back on the slate and be like, I won on the wrong site.
Yeah, I woke up and the only thing that I thought to myself was like, man, I really hope one of my random 15 Nikola Jokic lineups just had the nuts, and they didn't. They crushed my nuts. That is what happened.
But we got basketball back. We had good games last night. They were fun to watch.
They were. I went to bed probably at the end of the first quarter of the Suns game. Just I knew what I had coming today. 12-game slate, early morning. So I was able to get to bed pretty early. I was tired after yesterday. I had a great process show this morning. And now we're here. Are you ready to dive into this massive 12-game slate?
Let's do it. And not going to have to spend as many time on individual games as we did yesterday.
No, I said this to when I first got into the Zoom. It's so different doing a 12-game slate than it is doing like a 2-game slate because you only really have to look at like 3 names per team at best. Basically the difference between yesterday and today is that yesterday the 9th and 10th men in the rotation, the Peyton Watsons and Julian Strothers of the world, really, really matter. Today, if you come off the bench, save for like, a select few dudes, you are not in play on a 12-game slate. You just are not going to have the volume. You might get there and you might have a score in the long run. We're not going to be projecting bench dudes to be super relevant on a 12-gamer. They're like 2% dudes at best.
Yeah, there is. What the hell is going on outside my room, outside my office right now? There's somebody hammering something. But
keep hammering.
Let's dive into this. This is going to be extremely annoying.
I'm intrigued who's getting hammered outside of your room. We're 7 minutes in. Greg's going to join in on the hammering that's going on, which could be all sorts of different stuff. There's no telling. I don't know. I don't even want to know.
All right, I hired somebody to work on my windows and forgot about it.
Is he hammering to get in? Hey,
Yep.
man.
No, he's just breaking windows and putting new ones in.
All righty. Well, game number one for today. 3.5-point favorites. That would be the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Charlotte Hornets, 236.5 total. This one is in Charlotte. I will not see this game as I normally don't because I am blacked out to Charlotte Hornet game on League Pass. And honestly, I'm not super mad about it. I don't really care too much about this Hornets team. Let's start on the Atlanta side. Not a ton to talk about. Obviously, John Collins out, looking like Sadiq Bey going to be in the starting lineup. The only other thing that could happen there if it wasn't Bey, it would be Jalen Johnson, but it is Bey, at least for today. We've got Trae Young. We've got DeJounte Murray. We've got DeAndre Hunter. We've got Clint Capella back in that starting lineup. Shout out Onyeka Okongwu signing your extension. What do you see here for Atlanta? Anybody jumping off the page for you immediately?
Not at all. So, especially on DraftKings where, like obviously Trae Young at $9,800 isn't unplayable or anything like that, but we did see a dip in his fantasy production last year playing alongside DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray on DK opens the year up at $8,000, which they're not unfair prices. The problem, though, is that pricing is incredibly soft today on DraftKings, and there just isn't that much of a need to play guys who are fairly priced. So I have lineups built out for DraftKings and for FanDuel, and in my top 150 lineups, I got to 1.3% of Trae Young. So I have a couple of Trae Young lineups, nothing of that much significance. The only thing that stands out to me really at all for today is that Clint Capella at 6K over on FanDuel. I do think that he's going to be splitting time with Onyeka Okongwu, but I also am kind of wondering if we might see them play together a little bit more this year now that there is no more of John Collins in the picture. At the very least, a 6K Clint Capella. He's a very good points per minute scorer. FanDuel scoring is a little more favorable to him than DK. So at least on FanDuel, I like Clint Capella at 6K, but that's really all I like from Atlanta on either site.
Get ready to like every center from every team. They are the one, like, when I went through it earlier today, every team you get to, you're like, oh, the center has a really nice point per dollar projection. And then you say it again and you say it again and you say it again. You're like, oh no, like I can no longer sift through all of these dudes. So we'll see where we end up there. Yeah, when I look at Atlanta, the goal is to pay attention to the starters. And I don't really see anybody that immediately jumps out. Like DeAndre Hunter is totally fine at 4,800 as a, mid-tier value guy. He'll be like 3, 4, 5% owned or something. There's not a volume dude. There's not an obvious cash play here. And that's really the best that we can talk about. We could let you know who's going to start, and we could tell you the guys that are the higher owned plays for the day. But if you want to tell me that you think Trae Young is just going to nuke the Hornets, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, but he is not going to be popular in any way at 9,800 today.
Nope. And for good, this game has the highest total on the slate, but still, there's just other spots to get to. And there's a point guard similarly priced on the other side of this game that I prefer to Trae Young.
Yeah, I do not disagree. And I like that Clint Capella shout on FanDuel. I think he does grade out as the best. You don't want to go to Onyeka Okongwu on FanDuel, however, 6,200. More expensive than Clint Capella.
Yeah, no thanks.
I don't know how that happens, but it certainly happens. Ath Eddie Nasty. I know that's definitely not the way you say it, but it's funnier to do it that way with the big super chat. Thank you very much for that one. First live show this year. I've missed y'all. I'm at work, so I probably have to tap out and watch the rest during lunch. God bless, fellas. Appreciate having you here. Thanks for the super chat. And if you got to watch later, that's okay. That's why we have this. Or if you can only listen later, subscribe to our podcast feed, which can be found anywhere that you get your podcasts.
Yeah, man. Thanks. And by the way, anybody else, best way to support us, just like the video, subscribe to the channel, helps keep our content free. And it's only going to take like a half second of your time.
Oh, I forgot to say, go Snakes, suck it Phillies. Couldn't have been any better. I don't know if you have any futures bets, so I'm not trying to rub that in, but boy, oh boy, did that feel good.
I have the Rangers at 60-1 to win the World Series from before the season. So all things put together, I'd rather see the Rangers play the Diamondbacks than the Phillies.
Nice. Significant or just like a sprinkle?
No, because like the max bet on DraftKings for it was like $42 for me or something like that. So it's not bad. It's like I win a couple grand if they win, but it's like not what I would have preferred to bet.
Sure. Oh, better than nothing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
At that number too, like That's great. Kudos. Go Rangers, I guess. I mean, I'm cheering for it. I'll be singing Creed at the top of my lungs. So
Yeah, so that's
Charlotte
my rookie
Hornets.
interest, Rangers.
Charlotte Hornets. So they're going to be without Miles Bridges because he is a garbage person. Uh, Gordon Hayward's still here, incredibly fascinating to see. But we got LaMelo, we've got Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, PJ Washington, and Mark Williams looking like the starting five here. I think Mark Williams stands out 5,300, assuming he is going to get like starting and closing minutes somewhere in that in that 28 to 30 minute range. They can go to Nick Richards pretty easily if they wanted to, but I like the center rotation for Charlotte. Like I said, though, we're going to talk about centers a lot. Who else stands out to you for the Hornets? And let me know, I guess, if you do like Mark Williams.
Yeah, I like Mark Williams. Of the players that only have center eligibility on FanDuel, so not the MP guys, he is the one I get the most exposure to. There are guys who are power forward and center that I get to more of than Mark Williams, just of pure centers. Mark Williams is going to be the guy for me on FanDuel. And then on DraftKings, he's also pretty easy to get to. He's only $5,300. We have the utility spot where you can play multiple centers there. He's mispriced. We saw last year how good of a points per minute fantasy producer he is. So I think that it's a great spot to go to Mark Williams, underpriced to open up the year. And then as far as LaMelo Ball goes, I think he's a great pay-up option. He's somebody who I think is worth getting like 15 to 20% exposure to on both DraftKings and FanDuel. $9,900 on DK, $9,700 on FanDuel. I was expecting before the year that we were going to have Bridges in the rotation because I didn't think that he'd be able to fuck up this quickly again. But lo and behold, he has. So remember, you and I were doing a preview show a couple of weeks ago, and I said one of the teams that I thought the market was too low on was the Hornets. Yes. And one of the main reasons was because, hey, this team has Bridges coming back who, remember, this guy was a really good player, and now I don't know if he's ever going to end up playing in the NBA again. So with him out of the picture, it kind of seems like this team is priced for him to be playing today. So Mark Williams, LaMelo Ball, those are the standouts.
Such a true trash person. It's really, really awful. I don't mind getting the LaMelo at all. Like, he's fantastic. When he's healthy, he's great. Is he always healthy? No. I don't need him to like explode his knee or whatever, or ankle untouched like he did to close out last season, which was not ideal. I kind of like PJ Washington a little bit at 5,700. He's got that power forward eligibility, which certainly helps. The total is appealing. PJ got paid. I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing in this case. Not that I want to go crazy here. I think Mark Williams is the best option if you don't worry about positions. But after you do that, I would probably want to get to LaMelo.
Yeah, I do have more exposure to LaMelo, and points per dollar, Mark Williams is certainly better, but the position eligibility is much better for Ball.
Yeah, I'm just reformatting one thing here on my sheet. Do you know if we've got ownership yet?
Let me check. I think the answer is no. I know that Lee was working on it when I was messaging with him before. Okay. Let me go back to the ownership page and see if it is up now.
It's not. I just checked. Okay. I beat you to it.
I'll keep refreshing it every couple minutes or so.
Perfect. All right. Well, game one in the books. We can keep this bad boy moving. And we're going to go to Washington. And man, it's going to be a long year for one Ship My Money once he gets back because the Wizards are some kind of terrible. They are 5.5 point dogs in Indiana, 234.5 total. The Indiana side definitely has a talking point, and we will get there, but we will start first with the Wizards. Looking like we're going to see Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, freshly extended Denny Avdia. Love that contract, by the way. Kyle Kuzma, and then Daniel Gafford. Gafford, 5,100, stands out as a really nice point per dollar center play. Get ready for that one. Tyus Jones for 4,900 feels pretty underpriced.
Yep. I have double-digit exposure to Tyus Jones in my initial run over on DraftKings. FanDuel, he's much more appropriately priced at $5,700. Where there I just kind of view him as like, hey, that's more or less fair for Tyus Jones on FanDuel. But yeah, DraftKings, one of the many players that they kind of shit the bed on in terms of pricing is they've screwed up players that are in different situations this year than last year. Generally, their prices are wrong, and every single center is underpriced on DraftKings. So Tyus Jones, I definitely think that he stands out, as does Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole on both DraftKings and FanDuel, I think he's going to have a monster year from accounting stat purpose. You look at this roster for Washington, and you try to figure out where the usage is going. Kuzma, Jordan Poole, and then it's a lot of other guys who are not bad players. Like I like Tyus Jones. I like Denny Avdia. I think these are solid NBA players, but these are not high usage guys. Jordan Poole is going to chuck this year. So I'm getting to him a good amount on DraftKings and on FanDuel, where he's only $7,700. He's one of my most exposed players on the entire slate. So I think that this is a really, really good spot for Jordan Poole and a good matchup to open the year. All the usage available to him. And he's very live to be a most improved player of the year candidate.
What are you expecting usage wise for Poole? Like 30?
I think north of that.
Okay. Jesus.
I mean, just think he was able to maintain high usages playing on the Warriors alongside like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Now he's going to a team where they're just like, hey, we're not even trying to compete this year. We just gave you a lot of money. Just do your thing. He's gonna chuck this year.
That he is. I don't necessarily love him today, but he's like perfect for GPPs.
Yeah, the upside is crazy.
Yeah. Like if the shot's falling, we know the volume is going to be there. Whether or not the shot is falling is sort of the bigger question. I actually haven't looked at any props or anything yet. I want to see what his scoring prop is for today.
I could tell you for the year, because I was looking at preseason props, his over-under for points average for the season was like 26.5 for the entire
25.5 minus 122 to the under right now. I am a little bit lighter in that projection. So if I would bump him up those 3 points, it would look pretty good for him. I'm around 22.5, but again, it is 10 o'clock in the morning and I was not going to micromanage everyone's rates to start today.
Yeah, it's going to be a big fantasy year for Poole and for Kuzma as well. Kuzma's underpriced at $7K on DK. FanDuel, I think the price point is more or less accurate at $7,800. Doesn't make him unplayable, but DraftKings screwed up the price on Kyle Kuzma. He should be like $1,000 more expensive there. 7,000 is a really good price for him.
I prefer Kuzma to Poole on DraftKings because of the price.
I prefer Kuzma to Poole on DraftKings. I prefer Poole to Kuzma on FanDuel.
Agreed. If everybody wants to keep a list right now, add Gafford to the list of centers you can play that are going to look like everybody else. I don't have anything else to touch on here. Avdia is like a fine value. It's not fun. There's nothing else here for Washington.
Nope. More cheap big men on the other side, though.
You ready for this one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have that much to say about it. Just play Obi Toppin today. He's the flat min on DraftKings, and he should not be. FanDuel isn't priced at $5,100. FanDuel's done a way better job than DraftKings at pricing to open up the season. $5,100, totally reasonable for Obi Toppin. And I know there's going to be people like, oh, Obi Toppin isn't that good. Like, how many minutes is he going to play? How many shots? It doesn't matter. If he goes out on this slate and just plays starters minutes and he's a guy who puts up like a fantasy point per minute, then you're just looking at mid-20s fantasy points as a reasonable expectation for Obi Toppin, which is just a great option at 3K. You have to play him in cash games today. Tournaments, it's very early in the day. I don't know exactly what my exposure is going to be to him, but I would not be surprised if I just click the lock button on Toppin and then just carry on with my day and make differences elsewhere.
Yep, flat 3K. He's fully broken. It makes no sense. You don't see real, actual NBA starters be priced at the flat minimum. He will be the highest owned guy today. I don't know what would have to break throughout the rest of today to find out someone else passes him. It would be a real calamity in some way. If you play a cash game and you don't put Obi Toppin in, and that is an on-purpose decision, just immediately click that self-exclude button permanently on DraftKings. You should never play again. This was, aside from days where like they don't have the correct lowest price, it really can't get much better than this.
No, you're just playing Obi Toppin. The only situations that are like any different is when you get into, midway through the season and you get the situations like, oh, Jokic is out. And remember, like DeMarcus Cousins is starting for him at the mid 3K. Yeah. Beyond that, you don't really find too many more obvious spots, especially at the start of the year. We don't have that many injuries to consider. Like he's the 3K guy to play on DK.
Yes, he is. Add Miles Turner to the list of centers that you can play that are in the 5 to 6K range. 5,900, completely reasonable, just not exciting to talk about.
He is $5,900 on DraftKings and $7,800 on FanDuel. So
silly.
FanDuel, he's just a guy who's appropriately priced on FanDuel. DraftKings, like you said, add him to the pool of centers who are like 1 like $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 underpriced. There's a bunch of them today.
Anybody else you like here for Indiana? If Halliburton ends up in lineups or Mathurin ends up in lineups, I think it's okay. But these guys are not volume plays.
Yeah, I like Halliburton quite a bit, especially because he's going to be drawing that Jordan Poole defense on the other side, and he's just a little bit cheaper than he should be. Halliburton only $9,100 on DraftKings. He closed out last year priced at $9,800. And I think that he was kind of playing with like a light minutes restriction towards the tail end of last year. So Halliburton definitely has the potential to be like a 10K guy. We've seen that from him at times last year. So Halliburton, good matchup, a few $100s underpriced on DraftKings. So I think he's a solid pay up option on FanDuel and DraftKings, like pretty comparable to like a LaMelo.
All righty. Anything else for Indiana?
Nope, just play Obi Toppin.
Play Obi Toppin quite a bit. The Boston Celtics are 3-point favorites in New York, taking on the Knicks, 225 total. I personally think that this is, and I don't want to disparage the Nuggets because they're awesome. I think this is the best starting five in basketball.
It's ridiculous, especially because you and I weigh Darko pretty heavily, and we like the projections they do there. And They have Jrue Holiday very comparable to Damian Lillard. So when that trade happened where Lillard was swapped and Jrue Holiday and the Blazers got other pieces, it was a situation where you and I both knew that Jrue Holiday was going to be sent elsewhere. And the first thought I had was like, whoever he ends up being sent is going to be a team that I'm going to really like the future outlook of, because Jrue Holiday is such a good NBA player. This defense for the Celtics could be ridiculous, particularly in the backcourt. Jrue Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. The thing that gets difficult now, though, is I don't know what to make of the usage on this team. This is such a loaded squad. Tatum, Porzingis, Brown, Jrue Holiday. So it's a team that out of the gate, I don't have a massive amount of interest in. I do think Drew's a little bit underpriced on DK, but there are better spots to target, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't like much here, although Jrue Holiday's price on DraftKings is incorrect. It's 6,100. He is 7,500 on FanDuel. I will happily play some Jrue Holiday. I think Porzingis for 7,200 also looks pretty good. I just don't know what his role is going to look like. It's even crazy to think like this is clearly the best defensive starting five in basketball, like from point A to point E, I guess. That was the wrong way to do that. But every single one of those guys is at the very least an average defender, if not, one of the best at their position. And the first sub that they make is going to be Al Horford coming on, and that is not going to change the vibe of what I just said at all. Death sentence defensively is going to be a real problem. Assuming everybody, I think the real scary part of this team is Jaylen Brown. Like, if everybody just wants to say, this is very clearly Jason Tatum's team, he is the offensive linchpin, then I think all the pieces fit together. It's when Brown wants to be Tatum that this could get problematic. But because otherwise, I think everybody just sort of slots in and knows the role. That said, from a DFS standpoint, I don't know how you want to go to Tatum today. It's hard. It's easier to go to Jaylen Brown just because he's cheaper and it's a good positional setup. But if I'm going to anybody on Boston, I think it's very easily Jrue.
Yeah, it's Jrue on DraftKings, like I guess Jaylen Brown on FanDuel, but nothing really stands out on FanDuel.
No, not at all. And not surprising at all. We got to remember, Knicks are not a team that you normally like getting up against from a fantasy perspective. They play a little bit slower, solid defensively. It's just usually not that kind of outcome. 225 total is like low mid-pack type stuff. Not ideal. Anybody else you want to touch on there? Any Derek White, anything like that?
Nah, it's kind of funny because the first couple of games we talked about are probably going to be some of the bigger pieces of my lineups. And we're going to have a bunch of games here coming up that I just don't have a ton of interest in. And overall, this is one of them.
We have ownership.
All right. I'm refreshing the page. Yep. 6 seconds ago.
I'm going to grab that now. 6 seconds. That's like 2 sexual experiences.
Let's see. Who is...
I'm just kidding, Jordan. It's like 3.
Topping 45%.
Yeah. Not much of a surprise on that bad boy.
I want way more than that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm really intrigued to see what like Sims will look like when I run it.
That's the first thing I'm going to do after the show, and I'm going to post the results too on YouTube and on Twitter when I do my initial run through Sims on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But I anticipate a lot of Toppin.
Yeah, he's going to be a good option today. I'm just dumping all of the updated charts and stuff into the sheet, so I have a little bit more of a talking point for everybody. But we have just gotten through Boston. We have ownership. By the way, Drew Holiday projected 22% ownership on DK. I have to assume that's one of the highest numbers of anybody.
Yes, he is of the only guards that are projected for more ownership than him. We have Tyus Jones projected for 37%. Zach LaVine, who's shooting guard small forward at 33.7%. THT, Taylor Horton Tucker, he's at 33.1%. And then Drew. So he's the fourth most rostered guard on the slate. And I have a feeling that's not going to be the case for me where he's the fourth most, but he'll definitely be in my player pool.
I wouldn't be surprised if he is my most exposed guard, and that includes Tyus Jones, but we'll see. I'm a Drew guy. I don't mind it. Let's go to the Knicks. Knicks, new look-ish Knicks. This is what are we going to say? Villanova East, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, they got Brunson, Hart. Who else is from
DiVincenzo, Arcidiacono. I mean, they got the whole damn team back.
Yeah, that is true. I forgot that those guys were on that team also. Well, I forgot that Arcidiacono even exists to begin with, because like
I think they just signed him too. And I was just like, of course, like he must have been in the group text from Nova, like, yo guys, I still need a job.
I'm unemployed.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy about it. I'm a big Villanova guy. Spent a lot of time there in college. So shout out to Villanova. Let's talk Knicks here. Julius Randle, 8,400 on DraftKings. He's 8,300 on FanDuel. Mitchell Robinson, add him to the list of potential centers you could play that are good point per dollar plays. RJ Barrett is in 6,400, small forward, power forward. If I'm going to go to anybody, it's probably Randle. I don't have any issue at all with the $7,600 price tag on Jalen Brunson, but I find this team to be incredibly difficult to want to roster.
Yeah, it's twofold. Number one is the prices are about fair for the Knicks to open up the year. And then just like we mentioned before, the Celtics, just going to be a brutal matchup. So of all the spots on the slate, the Knicks are one of the least appealing.
Des, I didn't go to Villanova. I just showed up there to drink very regularly. It was a good time. And then see Fountains of Wayne perform.
It was where Josh initially kicked off on what would lead to him throwing up in the streets of Chicago.
Yeah, I certainly threw up in the streets of... Is it technically Bryn Mawr? If it is, it was Bryn Mawr.
I don't know the cities and towns of the
Villanova. It's not the town of Villanova. That much I can tell you. I'm like 99% sure it's technically Bryn Mawr, which isn't exciting to anybody. I got nothing else for the Knicks. This is one of the easier teams to like not talk about.
Yep, I agree.
Bug boy. So you went to listen to Stacey's mom and then left. Au contraire, I listened to Stacey's mom and then everybody left, and then they played Stacey's mom again, so everybody came back.
And well, that's what Josh thinks. They played Stacey's mom, everybody had left afterwards, and then Josh was dancing in the bar by himself with double fisting Four Locos, and didn't realize everybody had left. Kept dancing though.
So what actually happened? So this was in like a big like quad area. It was like an outdoor concert for Nova Fest, I believe. So they played Stacey's mom right out of the gate, and that was very popular. This happened in 2006 or something like that. Sounds about right. So everybody is going nuts for Stacey's mom. And then, they go into their second song and everybody's just like, oh shit, we don't know anything else that this band plays. So they might as well have just been anybody. So everybody dissipates. I go to get in line with my best friend to get, I don't know, food, I guess. They weren't serving. I wasn't 20. No, I guess I was 21. I don't think they were serving beers on campus, but maybe they weren't. Not that that's the point. And immediately, the girl that I had become friendly with the night before that I did not want to bump into was like two people in front of us in that line. And I was just like, we got to get the hell out of here. So then we ducked off a little bit. And then they ran back Stacey's mom and I got back up to the stage. Good times.
And then they had to play one of the other songs and everybody left again.
I think so. Stacey's mom round 2 was like the encore.
Yeah.
They didn't exactly have like a wealth of hits.
I couldn't name another song of theirs.
You could or couldn't?
Couldn't.
Oh, no clue. Sink to the Bottom with You is their best song. Shout out to Ray F, who's apparently related to one of the Fountains of Wayne people.
Yeah, nobody else knows that information.
Yeah. Should not know that. All right. We're 3 games in. We're probably going a little bit slower than we needed to, but it's the pace is going to pick up considerably for some of these games. We got to talk about tip off. That's the promo code. You don't see it on the banner at the top of the screen. You don't see it on the banner at the bottom of the screen either. So I'm just going to explain it. Jordan, I'm not saying that to push your buttons or anything. You didn't do anything wrong. Tip off is the promo code. Links are in the description. If you want to sign up at Stochastic this year, you want to get an NBA package, 20% off whichever NBA package you want to grab. I recommend you go full bore, get the data max package. You want everything because the Sims tool are new. I'm guessing most people haven't used them yet. Maybe you're around for football. You'll have an idea of what's going on. If you're confused or new to our sim product, Greg and Steve have put out videos on the YouTube channel that outline everything you need to do. This handles late swap for you. That's one of the more revolutionary things that are happening in DFS right now. Our Sims tool is going to handle late swap and really help you to keep the best lineups possible. On a day like today with 12 games, late swap is essential. You want to be refreshing your lineup if you can for actuals in your lineup, changes that are happening. That's very important for you. We're not going to have this deal very long. This is going to be done by the end of the week, I think, maybe November 1st, somewhere in that neighborhood. You don't have a long time to take advantage of 20% off. Click the link in the description, sign up. You still get projections and ownership, boom, bust, premium Discord, all the data package that you normally had, but it is anchored by our Sims tool. Greg, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. So the other thing too is if you guys do want to just dip your feet into the toes of a cheaper package, you do have the lineup generator, which is less than $15. And then in addition to that, you do get the promo code tip off could be applied to that for 20% off. So if you want access to the lowest dollar tool that we have, especially if somebody who only plays 1, 2, 3, like if you're not somebody who plays a bunch of lineups per night, check out the lineup generator tool. We featured on a bunch of the content. We built lineups on it last night on Live Before Lock in the deeper dive. So if you just want lineups built for you, or if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of time to build lineups, that's the tool for you.
Bingo. Game 4, the new look Houston Rockets on the road, 4-point dogs in Orlando with quite possibly my favorite team in the my favorite team in the East, the Orlando Magic. We will start on the Houston side. Fred VanVleet with the ball in his hands now, just being the adult in the room to organize this offense. Kevin Porter Jr. a little bit less so. We're going to have Dylan Brooks, who is like the child in the room now, showing up. We've got Jalen Green in year 3, 4, 3, whatever, hoping to take a leap. Jabari Smith Jr. here he looked solid in spurts last season. Şengün, I know everybody loves him. Add Şengün to the list of potential centers that you can play. Is pulling a bunch of ownership at 17%. That seems I think he grades out really well, but that just seems ludicrous. There's too many options for Alperen Şengün to be 17% owned. I like Jalen Green. He's 13% owned. The other guy pulling any ownership for Houston. What do you see for this Rockets team?
Not a ton. A lot of it has to do with the addition of Fred VanVleet and how I think that's going to take the ball out of Jalen Green's hands. And, I know that we don't have Kevin Porter Jr. in the picture now. So you can, to some extent, just plug Fred VanVleet into the KPJ role. But Fred VanVleet is so much better than him. And he's also a much better passer. I kind of worry that Jalen Green's going to be very scoring dependent this year. And he's a very good scorer in terms of has ability to put up a lot of points in the game. He hasn't been efficient to this point in his NBA career, super athletic. I think he's going to improve, but it's hard for me to really get behind this backcourt when I think that the ball is going to constantly be in Fred VanVleet's hands. And I think that everybody else is just going to be scoring dependent. So Şengün, like you said, he gets added to the list of centers that are a little bit underpriced, but there's so many of them today. I don't think I'm going to get too much from Houston.
I doubt I have much at all. I just like that 7,400 for Jalen Green on FanDuel. That's a real tough sell to me. 6,200. He's shooting guard only, which is a bit of a bummer. But if I'm going to get to anybody, I think it is going to end up being Jalen Green. Fred VanVleet for 8,200 is going to be is tough. Everything else is tough here for Houston.
Yep, nothing really of interest.
I'll try to run that later. All right, let's hop over to the opposite side of this one. Orlando Magic, fun team, man, fun team. And there are some guys that I like quite a bit here. Starting lineup isn't going to be all that surprising. We're going to see guys like Oh my God, my brain just shut off there. I looked at his name. I started looking at the names here and I just couldn't say Markelle Fultz. I felt like I inherited his like ability to not shoot in my mind. Markelle Fultz, you're gonna get Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. Add Wendell Carter Jr. to the list of centers that are fantastic point per dollar plays. Like he's 3% owned. Şengün in like the teens on the opposite side. These guys are not that much different ownership comparatively that he should just be like nowhere near him. I also like Franz Wagner a lot at 6,100, particularly at small forward. If I'm getting to anybody, it's Franz.
On DraftKings, I really like Franz Wagner, $6,100. And then on FanDuel, we kind of have the inverse situation where there's guys who are underpriced on DraftKings but are appropriately priced on FanDuel. We've talked about a lot to this point. Banchero is $7,500 on FanDuel. He's $8,900 on DK. Power forward and small forward eligibility for Banchero. He's going to be one of my most rostered players on FanDuel today because he is just way too cheap at $7,500. I think he's a future star in the making. He does everything from a fantasy perspective as well. Assists, rebounds, scores, some defensive stats, which also the defensive stats plays a little bit better on FanDuel than DraftKings. So I really like Banchero.
I love that dude in general. 8,900 on DraftKings is going to be basically impossible. FanDuel is just a very, very, very different story. But that's why I'm going to be going to Franz. And then, just flipping Şengün to Carter is like an interesting move to me in potential GPPs. Maybe you don't have to do that, but that would be the path that I would want to take. I don't see too much else here. Like we've got Fultz projected for 5% ownership. That's the second highest mark for Orlando.
Yeah, it is for me. Wagner over on DraftKings, Banchero on FanDuel.
Agreed. We keep it moving. This one, weird game for me to look at. Is that a real ownership number?
Assume you're looking at Evan Mobley.
I am looking at Evan Mobley. Evidently it is. Not that I don't think that he looks good. Evan Mobley and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, no Jared Allen for this one. So we're going to get Garland. We're going to get Mitchell. We're going to get Max Strus as the 3. And we're going to get question mark in that final spot with no Jared Allen. Evan Mobley is obviously going to start. Whether he starts at the 4 or 5 is up in the air to me. I think Damian Jones might start. Or they go to Mobley at the 5 and they go to George Niang at the 4. They just don't have any 4s on this team unless they're willing to go to like Karis LeVert or Max Strus as a 4. So do you have any thought on the starting lineup for today for Cleveland?
Yeah, so my expectation is Strus starts, which if that is the case, all of the rebounds in the world are going to be available to Evan Mobley, which is why I think that if you guys are playing cash, he projects for a ton of ownership.
Wait, Strus starts in place of who?
In place of Jared Allen.
Okay, then who starts at the 3?
Oh, Karis LeVert.
Okay, so you think, okay, gotcha. You don't think it's, so I think George Niang might start too.
He could.
He's the only possible 4 on the team that's real. No Dean Wade.
It's also the Nets are another weird team on the other side. Like they play weird lineup combinations as well. A lot of it has to do with the fact that like Ben Simmons is a point guard who also can't stretch the floor. So you've got this Nets team that also is like weirdly big in the backcourt, but small in the front court for the Nets. So I don't think it's an issue for them if just Niang comes off the bench. Like I don't think there's like a size matchup or any kind of defensive issues they've been running into in that spot. But I mean, either way, I think this is a really good spot for Evan Mobley. Play him in cash games today. Tournaments, we'll see what opens up as we get closer to lock. He is super popular. I think it's more or less warranted, though.
Yeah, 6,300 is a silly price tag for him with power forward center. The reason Mobley looks so good is because he has that power forward eligibility. This team's going to get bludgeoned against, like with Jared Allen out. This team is awful defensively if those two guys don't exist together. Darius Garland is not a good defender. Donovan Mitchell is not a good defender. Max Strus is not a good defender. Karis LeVert has never been a good defender, but like he approximates an average defender nowadays. George Niang, if he's playing the 4, not a good defender. They're not trying to get a ton of minutes out of Isaac Okoro at this point. This is Mobley and everybody else. These guys, their point of attack defense on the perimeter is going to get beat like a drum.
And I don't think it matters all that much in this particular matchup. Mobley is,
Agreed.
at the very least, going to be able to hold his own in the paint. And by the way, also for people who are saying like, oh, don't want to play Strus, don't want to play Niang. I'm not dying to play those guys either. We're just kind of guessing what the starting lineup is. As far as what I'm liking from the Cavaliers from a DFS standpoint, it really is only Evan Mobley.
Agreed. 14% ownership coming into 7K Garland. Like, if you're going to go to someone in the backcourt for Cleveland on DraftKings, Garland $2,400 cheaper than Mitchell. I think it has to be Garland. I will have interest in George Niang if he happens to be named the starter at the 4. I think 22 to 24 minutes is reasonable at 3,400. Probably not the kind, because there's so much value on today's slate, like Obi Toppin, for instance. Getting a value play at like 24 minutes is probably not like the most important thing you can do. But I do think that Niang becomes slightly interesting if he can start. I just don't think he matters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have him expected to start right now, so obviously it would change things if I move the minutes around, but I don't expect I'd be getting too much of him.
Yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion it's going to be a center alongside of Mobley to start, whether that's Damian Jones or Tristan Thompson or whatever other garbage they have. Just play Ivan Mobley. That is a very, very easy thing to do.
Is there any cheap player they could start that you would be interested in?
No.
Same way I feel.
No. Not at all. Like, you know, if you expect 30 plus minutes out of Karis LeVert, I don't. But if you do, he's shooting guard small forward at 4,900, but he is also not going to see the ball much with this particular team. We go to Brooklyn. Oh, what a roster. We got Din Shitty. We got Ben Simmons. We've got Mikal Bridges. We've got Cam Johnson. We've got Nick Claxton. Only Spencer Dinwiddie getting ownership on DraftKings with anything substantial. Add Nick Claxton to the list of centers that you can play that are great point per dollar plays in the 5 and 6K range. Dinwiddie looks okay at 6,500. I don't really see much for me on either one of these sites that get me excited.
I wouldn't say excited, but I kind of felt this way going into last year too. I think there's an opportunity for a bounce back for Ben Simmons. I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but I think it's within the realm of possibilities. People absolutely hate Simmons. He is projected for 1% ownership on DraftKings at $5,900 with actual triple-double upside. Not projecting he's going to have a triple-double, but he has triple-double upside at $6,200. And we know the kind of defensive stats Ben Simmons could put up. He's 3% owned on FanDuel. So as far as contrarian plays go, he's somebody who I do like as a low-owned play that has such a wide range of outcomes this year. He had a crazy wide range of outcomes last year as well, and we got basically like the nut low outcome for Ben Simmons. But if you tell me that he's like an all-defensive type player this year and has a well-rounded fantasy game, I think that's like a very reasonable expectation of something that's within the realm of possibility. So I'll be overweight to Ben Simmons as a tournament play.
I don't think that's crazy, especially with that positionality, getting him guard forward. I think that helps a ton. He's plus 450 for a double-double, which I think is pretty good. 29 to 1 for a triple-double. That's the best odds that are listed on FanDuel for anyone in this game.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show. And all, I mean, I don't know how much weight we should put into the preseason, but he did play fairly well. But most importantly, he looked healthy. He had surgery in the offseason. He was banged up a lot of last year. That's been an issue for him the last couple of years. I suspect at some point this year it's going to be an issue for him. If there's any point Ben Simmons is going to be healthy, it's game 1 of the season.
Oh, man. I wish I had more to dig into here. And like, obviously, bench doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what they do with Dorian Finney-Smith, Royce O'Neal, Cam Thomas. Like, none of it matters. I don't really know who the backup center is for this team. Day'Ron Sharpe?
Could be Simmons. Simmons could play center minutes.
Allegedly. They'll probably play those two guys together. And then the FanDuel side of Brooklyn does not look great.
No, same deal. Like, I'm cool taking shots on Simmons on both sides, but nothing else really.
The Detroit Pistons are 9-point dogs on today's slate against the Miami Heat. 219 total. This is the low total on the day. Garbage team here in Detroit. Young. I like Cade Cunningham, and I'm excited to see Asar Thompson. That'll do it. Highest owned guy is 6% owned Jalen Duren. Add him to the list of centers that are completely reasonable to roster. Beef Stew, maybe because he has power forward eligibility. I don't. Is this the worst team that you can get to today?
No, because Cade Cunningham is $7,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, that was a DraftKings question.
Okay, on DraftKings, I'm gonna say no, just because Duren is $4,800 on DraftKings. Like, to me, that's more appealing than anything from the Knicks. But it's also a center position that's crazy loaded. I'm going to be getting some exposure to Duren for sure. And I think Thompson is somewhat interesting because I think he has the potential to just play a lot of minutes. This is a team that has a million power forwards and big men on their team, but they don't have that many backcourt players. And Thompson has pretty favorable positional eligibility at shooting guard and small forward. So I think that he's worth getting some exposure to. But yeah, on the whole, this is a team on DK that isn't all that interesting. Cade Cunningham at $7,500 just flat out mispriced on FanDuel.
Cade Cunningham at $9,000 is just flat out mispriced on DraftKings.
Yeah, his true price is somewhere in between. Like, yeah, he should be like an $8,200 guy. And another guy also who kind of similar to Ben Simmons, really wide range of outcomes. I don't know what to expect from Cade Cunningham this year. If you tell me he sucks, and at the end of the year, the Pistons draw is like, oh, we did not take the correct guy with the number 1 overall pick, that wouldn't be surprising. If Cade Cunningham elevates to be an all-star type level player this year, that wouldn't be surprising either. So $7,500, really good tournament play on FanDuel.
I hope he has a good year. I'm a fan, and I just want him to be healthy and out there. I just wish he wasn't in Detroit. It's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it also just sucks that he lost a year of development when he was already struggling and needed the reps last year, and then just the shin splints, which it's basically he's just like a second-year player now. We didn't see anything out of him last year, and this is also a very difficult matchup for them to open the year against the Heat.
Speaking of the Miami Heat, weird team just because they lost Gabe Vincent for nothing. They lost Max Strus for nothing and didn't really do anything to address those situations. So you're going to get Kyle Lowry. Tyler Hero is back. Jimmy Butler. Kevin Love is still here. Bam Adebayo, obviously. Add Bam Adebayo to the list of centers that you're able to play. But the best guy that you can get to on the DraftKings side for today for Miami, if you're getting to anything, is Tyler Hero, 6,300 point guard, shooting guard eligible. Do I think you should have a ton of him? No, but I do think he looks the best. I have a hard time wanting to get to Jimmy here at 8,800, but if that's your bag, go for it. Other than that, I'm more than okay to avoid Miami.
They're so thin, especially because Josh Richardson is out. He's somebody they're actually going to need to play a decent part of the rotation. He's out to start the year. You just kind of look at who's available for this team. And I don't think they're going to want to run Jimmy Butler into the ground to open up the year. By the way, did you see what his profile picture is on FanDuel?
It's the best. I assume it's the Fallout Boy picture.
Yeah, they made emo Jimmy his profile avatar picture on FanDuel, which is hilarious. But we saw them very, very cautious with Butler to open the year last season. I expect they're going to do the same this year. And then you just look at the other players available. It's like, all right, they kind of have to play Tyler Hero a bunch of minutes. They're not going to want to play Butler a bunch. They're not going to want to play Lowry a bunch. Said that Josh Richardson's already out. And then their roster is generally forwards. And so I think Hero is going to play a bunch of minutes. And if you're going to take Butler off the court for a lot of those minutes, Hero just walks into a bunch of usage. So a strong mid-range play on DK and FanDuel, 6,300 on DK, 67 on FanDuel.
If Bam really just has it in his mind to dominate this game, he's not going to have much trouble with the flotsam that is going to get trotted out in the front court for Detroit. Give him all of the Bagley, Wiseman, even Duren, Beef Stew. Bam is not going to respect a single soul on the opposite side.
Yeah. The only problem is just he's center eligible and there's 10 million good. There's every team that's on the slate, almost every team has a viable starting center at their price point. It's going to make it hard for me to want to spend up for the center spot.
Ooh. All right. I got nothing else here.
Yeah. Moving on.
Halfway done. So we got to touch on the sponsor of today's show. You see the banner at the top of the screen. That is going to be Bet365. This one is easy. There's not much else to say. Bet $5, get 150, unless you are in the state of Kentucky. And I'm sorry, state of Kentucky. I know I spoke quite ill of you yesterday and this morning again on the Process Show, but you do get the benefit I assume you guys need it. Bet $1, get 365. Think about that deal. Click the link in the description. Now, this is only for Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, and Colorado. But 5 to get 150 in Kentucky, 1 to get 365. I hope they have that one in North Carolina in January when we go live, because I will certainly be taking advantage of it. You got to be 21 or over, or 18 and over in Kentucky. That joke will continue to make itself. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Kenneth in chat, $365. You could buy a house in Kentucky with that.
Yeah. You could buy a house, you could buy a wife, the whole deal, everything included in Kentucky for that amount of money.
A cousin.
Yeah, that's the wife. That's
yeah. I get it. Sign up at Bet365 though, guys. Who doesn't? Look, it's free loot. It builds you out a bankroll in an easier way than actually making picks. I mean that by a lot. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 1-point favorites in Toronto, 225 total. This one has a little bit of ambiguity in it. No Jalen McDaniels in this one, or Jaden, whichever one is on the Timberwolves. You know what I mean. Whatever Wolf is on the whatever McDaniels is on the Wolves. That's the one I'm talking about. Mike Conley, obvious starter. Anthony Edwards, obvious. Karl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert. Who do you think is the fifth starter? Are we going to get Slow-Mo or Nickeil Alexander-Walker?
I'm going to guess Slow-Mo, but the player I want to roster from this team in DFS is going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker, because I think he has an opportunity for playing time, and he's the flat min price on DK. And that's the only thing I like from this team on either site. Taking some shots on NAW. I don't want to pay up for Edwards, Towns, or Gobert. On FanDuel, nothing looks all that good because Nickeil Alexander-Walker is $4,300. So DK taking some shots on NAW, and that's really going to be whether he starts or comes off the bench. I think he's viable. If he starts, then he's just locked into those minutes, and then he would look like a really strong value play. But either way, I think he's somebody to roster, and everything else here kind of looks like shit.
I don't mind Towns on DraftKings. Has the power forward eligibility, 8,600. There's something there. But again, this is a 12-game slate. This is not me going to go crazy over it. But yeah, I want Nickeil Alexander-Walker to be the starter, because at flat 3K, that just, it makes him look like the best thing that you can get from Minnesota. If he's on the bench, he's still on a normal day, he'd be interesting because he's 3K. But today he's just not, because you're going to need... Look, honestly, to win a GPP tonight, you're probably going to need like 45 from each roster spot. And that's going to be really hard to do off the bench in 24 minutes.
Yeah, it's overall, this is a very unappealing game. Like, even when we talk about the Raptor side, there's not a ton to like there.
No, reminder to everybody, Nick Nurse no longer the coach of the Raptors, so you don't have to just pencil in everybody for 42 minutes in the starting lineup. And they might actually play a backup point guard. By the way, from Woj, James Harden ruled out Thursday. Personal reasons. Not going to be able to make it. I hope everything's okay with James.
Yeah, he's just a dickhead. He's a pain in the ass and doesn't feel like playing basketball unless it's in his preferred destination with the proper strip clubs that he likes to attend. Other than that, he has no interest in playing for your basketball team. And he seems to wear out his welcome everywhere now, like a maximum of 2 years.
Is he wrong?
Well, here's where he's wrong. Also, we don't know all the information here. Like, we don't know what Daryl Morey had promised him. It seems like that's his gripe with the team, is that it seems like he felt he had an under-the-table deal with Daryl Morey for a contract extension that never ended up coming to fruition. So I could definitely empathize with that if that's what he feels is the case. Here's the problem, though. If you have now been on this many teams where you've worn out your welcome this quickly and demanded a trade, it can't be all of the other organizations. It has to be you at some point. And I don't know how any team looks at James Harden now and says, like, oh, James Harden wants to force his way here and now wants a contract extension. How could you have any expectation it's going to end well based on how his last few places went? So he has killed his own trade value and his market value by just being a pain in the ass. If I'm a team, I'm not signing Harden to anything longer than a 2-year deal, and he wants a max contract extension, which I don't think exists.
I'd push back on this. I agree that he killed his trade value. I don't think he cares at all what his trade value is. And honestly, it's probably better for him to kill his trade value because he would rather have more shit at the team he goes to. I don't know if he killed his market value. Like when push comes to shove, I think like if he wanted to go get like a 5-year deal from a garbage team at a close to max rate, do I think that he could do that and just punt winning? Yeah. But I don't think it's going to be all that bad. Like I think he's still just he's not going to suddenly make the mid-level exception money or anything. I don't think. I think that he'll get whatever I think it's just going to be like, look what Kyrie Irving just got from the Mavs. Would you be surprised if James Harden signs the equivalent deal to that after this? He's been a dickhead everywhere. And it just, like, for him, in his mind, it's just like, well, I do these things. I get moved exactly where I want to go. I continue to get the things that I want. Why would I not continue to do it? I blame the league.
The difference between Harden and Kyrie is age, though. James Harden's looking for a max contract extension with big years, and he's 34 years old and is already showing signs of slowing down. I just don't know how you commit a 5-year deal for James Harden, who's 34 years old. Everywhere he goes within 2 years, he's asking out. He's being a pain in the ass. So I don't see any team. Like, could he get big money for a short-term deal? Absolutely. I don't think he's going to get what he wants, which is a long-term deal.
Agreed. But I don't think that was just going to be hard for him to get anyway. He just doesn't have that sort of pedigree left. But, if he's going to would you be surprised if he gets 45, 50 million over 3 years in some sort of extension? I really wouldn't.
3 years, maybe 2 years. No, just because I wouldn't do it if I'm a team. Like how do you commit multiple years to him?
Yeah, same. Toronto. No more Fred VanVleet. Kind of sad around these parts. We're going to have Dennis Schroeder manning the ship in Toronto. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Jake Puddle. Add Jake Puddle to the list of viable centers at 5,900. He'll be starting. I think the best play that you can get to from Toronto on DraftKings is $6,700 point guard small forward Scotty Barnes. He's also 5% owned. That's the max amount of ownership from anybody for Toronto. Hard to get excited here.
Yeah, and a big part of this, too, is what you had said, like Nick Nurse being gone. One of the main values we got out of the Raptors last year is that you were getting 40-ish minutes out of all these core guys, no matter what. It didn't matter if they were hurt. It didn't matter if they played the day before. It didn't matter if the game was a blowout. Nick Nurse was like, oh, shit, a 25-point game. Our starters need to be in the game for the final 2 minutes. Who knows what could end up happening? That, I assume, is not going to be the case this year. It's a new coach. We don't know exactly what the rotations are going to look like. But you have to think these guys have less upside because they can't play more minutes than they did last year. At the very least, it's the same, but probably almost certainly going to be less. Scotty Barnes at $6,700 has some interest to me on DK, but this is not a team that I'm dying to get to.
Same. It's just tough. We don't know what this is a team where we really don't know what they're going to look like. New point guard running the ship who normally played 40 minutes a night. New coach in. Who knows? A coach with no track record, I might add.
Yeah, nothing.
So we shall keep it moving to my favorite West team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who may be missing from our ownership projections, or maybe I just have a weird error. No, they're not. For some reason, they are not showing up correctly for me. I'll worry about that later. Mm-hmm. We know this starting lineup. SGA, Giddey, Dort, Jalen Williams, and now a legitimate center, Chet Holmgren. Excited to see what Chet looks like. Not exactly exciting price tags here. Jalen Williams might be the guy that I like the most. Giddey at 7,500 is certainly an interesting price tag. Shea at 10,500. I'll never tell you to not roster Shea. I mean, we're talking about an all NBA level player here. And then you get Chet at 6,500, which could be a great price tag. The fact that he is power forward helps him out a lot. What do you want to do with OKC?
Nothing really all that interesting outside of some tournament shots on Chet. The ownership on him, he's projected for 2% ownership on DraftKings. 2% on FanDuel, 1% on DraftKings. He's such an unknown, but I think there's a very, very obvious ceiling to Chet that I'm going to take some shots of him in tournaments, not a ton. Like I'm looking at my exposure right now. I have 5% of him on DraftKings. I have 6% of him on FanDuel, my initial run of lineups. That's well overweight to the field, but it could be a good play. It could be bad. We're not going to know exactly what Chet's going to be until later on in the year, but just because I think there is a potential for a ceiling there, I'll get some shares when he's totally unowned to open up the season.
I don't hate it. I'm a big fan. I'm really excited to see him. Let's see. Yeah, 5% ownership to Giddey is the high mark. I would rather have Jalen Williams than Giddey today.
Probably neither of them, though.
Yes, also true. Also true. On a different slate, Ousmane Dieng would be weird to me at 3K with power forward eligibility, but do not take any advice there in playing Ousmane Dieng. That will not be the one you're looking for. I'm just a fan. That's all. All right. Let's get out of Oklahoma City. We go to Chicago. This is a team that we actually have to talk about. These guys might be the presidents of the broken pricing club for today. Kobe White. We're going to get Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Patrick Williams, Vooch. 34% ownership coming into Zach LaVine on DraftKings because he's a $6,800 shooting guard small forward. Very incorrect price. Vooch is $6,900, 33% owned. He should be chalky, but again, add him to the list of centers. I don't think that he should be in a third of lineups. That ownership seems too high to me. He's good. He's probably your cash center. And then DeMar DeRozan, 7,100. Again, like that's probably a little bit too low. He's 23% owned. Kobe White stepping into the starting lineup, 4,600. It's really hard to avoid the Bulls today.
Yeah, and I mean, the price tag on Zach LaVine makes zero sense to me because at least some of these other spots where there are broken price tags, at least it's new or kind of unknown situations, right? Where it's like, well, Obi Toppin, at least you could say he's new to being on the Pacers. Maybe that kind of caught DraftKings off guard on this is the same exact Bulls team that we've had every single year, and they still fucked up the price here. Yeah. Zach LaVine at $6,800 is one of the easiest buttons to click on the entire DK slate. Even at $7,800 on FanDuel, I think he's underpriced. So DK, $6,800, Zach LaVine, he's going to be one of my most rostered players. Really difficult to get away from. Vooch projects great points per dollar, but just because there are so many centers, I'm almost certainly going to end up underweight to the field on him just because there are a lot of guys I want to play at center. I don't want a third of my lineups to be one of the many guys that are underpriced.
Yeah, Vooch is very clearly the easiest guy to get away from there. It's not even close, honestly. Points prop on Zach LaVine for today, 26.5. This dude's 6,800 with the elite MPE.
Is wild. His points prop is high to the point where like if he hits the over on that, he like kind of pays off his salary on DK just with scoring and nothing else. And he's obviously going to do other stuff. Yeah,
he can do the go over 28 points 0-0, and he really just doesn't need to like one or two defensive stats, and you're already sniffing the actual projection. He's in such a good spot here. Play a lot of Zach LaVine, play some DeMar DeRozan, play some Kobe White, play some Vooch. Just don't play 33% Vooch.
Agreed.
I don't have anything else for Chicago, so we go to Pelicans and Grizzlies. This one's around a pick'em, 226 total. We get Zion Williamson, which is awesome. We also have Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum, Herb Jones, Joe Val. Unfortunately, we don't have Trey Murphy. He's going to be out for a bit. Highest owned guy here, $7,700 shooting guard, small forward, Brandon Ingram, 18% owned. Add Joe Val to the list of centers that you can play in the 5 and 6K range. He is 6,100 and basically unowned. Herb Jones, 4,800. Zion, 9,700. Don't know how you want to do that. If I'm going anywhere here, it's Brandon Ingram.
It's almost nothing for me. It's like a little bit of Brandon Ingram on DK, Zion on FanDuel, because Zion's 8,700 on FanDuel, or Ingram's 8,200. But these are guys who it's like 2-3% guys over the course of 150 lineups, and none of the ancillary pieces is anything I want to get to from New Orleans. So a fairly unappealing team.
I'm not mad that this is the case, but Zion having center eligibility on DraftKings is funny. This dude does not play center.
No.
I don't know what else you would push here, though, other than just saying, Joe Val is on that center list.
Yep. Yeah, not a great team to roster. Same can't be said for the other side, which is going to be pretty important.
It is indeed. We go to the Memphis Grizzlies, the new look Memphis Grizzlies, I might add. And boy, oh boy, are these guys a little bit different. So Ja Morant, obviously out with his suspension. So annoying. Dylan Brooks is annoying, not out with a suspension, just simply not on the team anymore. Brandon Clark out for the year. Steven Adams out for the year. very different Memphis team. So you are going to get newly minted point guard Marcus Smart. We've got Desmond Bane here. I assume Zaire Williams starting at the 3. Then we get Jaren Jackson and Xavier Tillman. Derrick Rose, backup point guard here. 48% ownership coming into the $6,600 power forward center eligible Jaren Jackson. That price tag is quite wrong. Desmond Bane, 42% owned. Shooting guard, small forward, 7,400. That price is very wrong. These are 2 of the 5 best plays on today's slate.
I totally agree. And for reference, Jaren Jackson Jr. is $8,200 on FanDuel, and he made it into 11% of my lineups when I was building them out this morning. And he is $1,600 cheaper than that when I'm getting to double-digit exposure to him on FanDuel. God. So, I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr. is somebody who very popular today, but more or less appropriate. I have him in like half my lineups now. That's probably about where I'm going to land. And Desmond Bane also super popular. I think it's warranted. If I'm only picking one of the Grizzlies studs, it is going to be Triple J for me over Desmond Bane. But both of them are clearly underpriced on DraftKings, especially with Morant out.
I'm this much nervous about Jaren Jackson. I have no nerves for Desmond Bane. He's just going to run the show here unless Marcus Smart is really feeling himself. I'm a little nervous about Jaren Jackson just because of Zion. Zion's going to get to the rim. No one's stopping him from doing that. That is just going to happen. If Jaren Jackson is meeting him, we need to find out what Jaren Jackson that's going to be. Because that's the only thing. If Jaren Jackson can play 30-plus minutes today, it means he stayed out of foul trouble. If he's out of foul trouble, he's usually going to be a nice play. Today could be the day. He's gotten way better at not fouling than he used to be. Didn't exactly have like there was nowhere else to go but up for Jaren Jackson. But if he runs into any issues with fouls, that could be a problem for him.
His price point got as high. I'm looking at his historical pricing now. He got as expensive as $9,600 on DraftKings last year, and they just opened him up at $6,600. There's always some risk of fouls, and like you said, this is a matchup where probably going to be in a spot where he's most prone to pick up those fouls, but the price point is just so broken that he's worth playing in like half your lineups or so.
Yeah, it is not stopping me. That's for sure. I will still have him, but I can see the narrative of Jaren Jackson's chalk ownership tonight on Twitter when Zion goes into his chest twice, and then that's just it for a bit.
And then they bring him back out for a rotation at the start of the second quarter. He picks up a foul in 30 seconds, then comes out again. We've seen this happen with chalk Jaren Jackson before, but he's somebody to play.
Any interest in Smart?
Not really. I do think he's going to take on a really big distributor role this year. His over-under for assists is opened at 7.5 for the first game, which I think is a little bit high to open up the season. 7.5 assists for Marcus Smart. But there's just other guys to play, and he does have somewhat of a price tag to him.
All righty. I don't really have anybody else here to mention from Memphis. They're just looking real tasty tonight. Add Bane. Look, building out my optimal this morning. Like I think like Desmond Bane at 7,400 was like the most expensive guy in it. Or if like somebody might have been like 7,600. There was like nobody above 8K. It was just the stupidest optimal lineup ever.
Yes. I don't have that. We'll get to him when we get there. My highest projected lineup actually does have Luka in it, just because there's so many cheap plays to get to. But if I look at like my second highest projected lineup, Desmond Bane is the most expensive player at 7,400.
Oh, Jake DeWitt said Tillman. Forgot to mention Xavier Tillman, 5K. Add him to the list of potential centers that you could play that are great point per dollar plays in the 5 and 6K range.
Yeah, no Steven Adams out for the year.
Yeah, sucks so much. Anything else here for Memphis?
No, and the never mind. We already talked about the other side.
Schedule for the rest of the day, folks. This one's pretty easy. Not a lot that I need to add here. NBA deeper dive coming up at 5:30 tonight. No, 4:45. I don't know. 5:30. I never changed the schedule in my run sheet, so that's why I'm reading that wrong. 4:45 deeper dive. Myself, Chris Spags. We're taking the extra 15 minutes to break this bad boy down again. And then at 6 p.m., Greg, is that going to be you and Eric?
Yep.
Easy stuff. Good content day for basketball. Do we have anything else going on? I don't think we do, right? No NFL?
No NFL, no hockey. Just basketball today.
Love it. Love it. Final 3 games, 9:00 start. Sacramento Kings, a team that I am not high on this season. 1.5-point favorites in Utah, 235 total. Highest owned guy for Sacramento, 8% De'Aaron Fox. Next, 2%. Now, DraftKings has 15% ownership going to Fox. I do not like Fox in this matchup. I sneaky like Kevin Huerter more than anybody else, but the most likely scenario here is that I do not have the Kings.
Yep, I'll make this easy as well. This is not a team that I want to play today. The player I have the most exposure to was De'Aaron Fox at 2%, and that's basically nothing. So nothing that I want to play here.
No, I don't like this matchup for Sacramento in particular for this game. And I don't like Sacramento just in general as a person. Sorry, Sacramento. Like the beam, though. Do whatever you need to do. They're not a great DFS option today. That's very easy. Like Sabonis at 10-3 after hearing all of these price tags. I don't know how you could ever want to do that.
No, it's especially just, I mean, the center eligibility, that's an issue for him. Over on FanDuel, he does have power forward center eligibility, but even with that said, I don't want to pay 9.8 for him.
Absolutely should not have that eligibility. He will play 0 seconds at the forward spot this year. He is center only by a mile. Utah on the opposite side. New look team in that they've got John Collins. Yay. He is meaningless-ish for today, unless you think he's going to have a resurgence. But Walker Kessler is 5,600. He is 12% owned. Add him to the list of centers that you can play. There are decent options at 5 to 6K. But the guy that you need to get to the most for the Utah Jazz, obviously, the most obvious play from the Jazz, Talen Horton-Tucker, 4,500 on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward, 5,500 on FanDuel, shooting guard, small forward. He is 30% owned across both sites. That's going to be a fun experience.
I like him more on DraftKings than I do on FanDuel, but unavoidable player to get to today. Just too cheap at $4,500 when he's shooting guard and small forward eligible. I'm almost exactly even with the field in the lineups that I was building out this morning. I got to 30.7% of THT. So I think the ownership there is about appropriate. And other than Walker Kessler, who's one of the million of centers today that are underpriced, I don't like anything else really.
Yeah. This Talen Horton-Tucker shit sucks, man. I hate it.
I hate it so much. From on at $5,500, you can get away from him on FanDuel at that kind of ownership. I'll be underweight to him on FanDuel. DraftKings, I'll be right with the field.
Yeah. There's no other way around it. And it's the positionality too. Shooting guard, small forward, guard forward, utility. Like you do whatever you need to. You can put him wherever you want at a very, very cheap salary against a Sacramento team that is, like a bottom 6 defense. I mean, it's great spot. Not going to meet a lot of resistance at the rim with Domantas Sabonis on the opposite side.
True.
The Dallas Mavericks, 3.5-point favorites in San Antonio, taking on the Spurs, 229 total. We've got Kyrie Irving, we've got Luka Doncic, and then we've got a weird team. Grant Williams probably starting for sure, but we've got some Q tags out there. Dwight Powell has a Q tag. Are we going to get Derek Lively starting? I've seen some murmurs that Derek Jones Jr. is starting at the 3 and not Josh Green. That said, Luka Doncic is 15% owned. No one else is more than 4. And if I'm going to anyone, it is the 11K Luka Doncic because I have all the salary in the world to do it, and Luka gets to play San Antonio.
He's listed as questionable. It's the first game of the year. I tend to think he's going to play. Now, with that said, I was doing my video yesterday morning, and I was laughing, Josh. I was laughing that the Suns had listed Devin Booker and Bradley Beal as questionable for the opening night slate. And I finished recording the video 45 minutes later. Beal gets ruled out, and then Devin Booker becomes questionable. And they said that he was very iffy for the game. So maybe we do have to take these questionable tags a little bit more seriously. But I'm assuming Luka plays. He's my favorite pay up option on the slate. Points per dollar, he doesn't project especially well. But there are so many underpriced guys on the slate that he's not all that difficult to get to. So if you have the space to pay up for somebody, Luka is going to be your guy. One thing to keep an eye on, Richaun Holmes was actually wearing the starter's jersey at practice yesterday. If he starts, I do think that he becomes another center we could add to the list. Flat min on DK at $3,000. I don't know how likely it is, but it seems to me there's a possibility he starts.
I think it's going to be really hard to like anybody here. If Powell is in, especially, because then it's like Maxey can play center, Powell can play center. They're going to give Lively some minutes. So it's possible that Holmes is just playing 18 minutes as a nominal starter at 3K. Again, on a different slate, it'd be great to pay attention to. But Richaun Holmes is not going to step into a starting lineup in 28 plus minutes. That would blow my mind.
Yeah, I don't know it'll be 28 minutes, but Dwight Powell, part of it too, if Dwight Powell plays, it's a definite no-go. But Dwight Powell didn't practice yesterday. He's dealing with an illness. That's why he's listed as questionable to play. And with him sitting out practice yesterday, they had Rashawn Holmes wearing the starters jersey, practicing with the starters. So he's at the very least in play if he's going to be 3K and starting at center.
For sure. Go Luka. Go Luka. San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama. Good luck projecting this dude. I basically took Miles Turner's stat line and used that as my Victor Wembanyama base. I don't know who else to start with for him. I mean, this dude is on a different level. The picture of that block on Andrew Wiggins breaks my brain. The ball isn't where I would expect it to be, and he's still getting to it. Like it's so much higher than it normally would be at the place that he blocked it, and he blocked it anyway. You're getting Devin Vassell. You're getting Jeremy Sohan as the point guard. I don't get it. Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins. The highest owned guy here is Sohan because of the $4,700 price tag and guard forward eligibility. He's 11% owned. Do you think Wembanyama pulls ownership at 8,500?
It's so hard because we haven't projected for no ownership, right? But there are certain situations that just kind of exceed what you could measure with data. And there's so much hype for Wemby, and it is 100% warranted. I was talking about it last night on Live Before Lock. We were looking at Odd Shop, we were looking at best bets, and I was telling people that Wemby is just undervalued for Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, entering the year, especially because the 65 game limit doesn't exist for Rookie of the Year. It only exists for other awards. So I think that he's like a shoo-in, barring injury, to win Rookie of the Year this season. And I just don't know what to make of what his fantasy output is going to be. My intuition is that he's just going to be an absurd fantasy producer, especially with the defensive stats. So on FanDuel, it's $7,700, where we currently have him projected for 1% ownership. I'm going to take shot. He's going to be higher owned than 1% because this is one of those things, like I was saying, where you can't really measure it with data because there's going to be people who just want to click on Wemby no matter what he projects for because they want to play him. I prefer him on FanDuel to DraftKings. I'm going to take shots on both sites because we might find out a month from now that he's just a 10K player who's a freak and registers like 2 steals and 4 blocks per game.
I'll have none on DraftKings. I have no doubt about that. Just looking at the props, they lined up really nicely with my projections, and I did not look at either of those things to make that happen. Points prop is currently sitting at 17.5. I have him at 17.5. Rebounds prop sitting at 6.5, juice to the over. I had him at 7.2, so I feel really good there. It's the steals and the blocks that are going to put you over the edge. And on FanDuel in particular, there are going to be days where he just puts up like an 8, 9, 10 stock day, and those are going to be the days. On DraftKings at 8,500, I don't see it. I really don't see anything here for San Antonio other than Jeremy Sohan, just because of the positionality. I do think Devin Vassell at 6,400 is like a really nice guy to want to get to. He's just add him to the list of 75 other dudes that look like Devin Vassell today.
I think Sohan, particularly on DraftKings, does look really good at $4,700. He is somebody who is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. The Spurs just aren't really playing a point guard. It's going to be him. Another betting angle to this, I'm not sure what the lines are now. The Spurs opening prop lines is something that really stuck out to me on OddsShopper. We're all wrong. Wemby's opening PRA was 21.5 for this game. That was the first thing, one of the first things I bet. That's just absolutely wrong. That his over-under was 21.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Sohan's over-under for assists was 2.5. That to me was an easy over when you consider that he's going to be the starting point guard. Those lines have moved dramatically, but it is a team where I think there's a lot of unknowns. I'm going to be playing Sohan a bunch on both sides. I'll take some shots on Wemby because there's a clear, obvious ceiling there, but nothing else I really want to play.
Oh, man. I can't, like, to watch this game is going to be so much fun, man. I just want him to get through the season healthy. I want him and Chet to just get through the season healthy, and we see what these two dudes look like.
Agreed.
Oh, man, rookies are the best. The best. All right. Let's close it out. Final game, the Portland Trailblazers. If somebody else is going to win Rookie of the Year, I think he's going to show up on this Portland team. 9-point dogs in Los Angeles, taking on the Clippers. No more Dame here, which is going to make for a really bad viewing experience for Portland. Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Matisse Thybulle probably, or is the starting 3 for Portland tonight. Then you get Jeremy Grant and his fresh contract, along with Dominator, DeAndre Ayton, highest owned guy on the team on DK at 5%. Add DeAndre Ayton to the list of centers from 5K to 6K that are completely reasonable plays. I actually think he looks even sneakier just getting out of Phoenix and maybe having a chip on his shoulder. I don't really see anybody here that I would want to roster from Portland.
I don't know what to make of the rotation. Like, they still have Brogdon. I thought they would move him before the season starts. So,
yeah.
I mean, you can make a pretty strong case that if everybody's healthy, Brogdon is the best player on the team right now. But like, I don't know what his role looks like to open the year. If you tell me he plays 30 minutes, I'd be cool. That makes sense. If you say he plays 18 minutes because they're just trying to get him work and they want to move him at some point, that would make sense to me as well. So Ayton, like you said, add to the list of centers that are playable today. Scoot Henderson is another rookie who I think has a lot of fantasy potential. So you could take some shots on him, but nothing that I'm like dying to roster.
Anthony Simons points prop right now. Do you want to guess it if you haven't seen it?
24.5?
23.5.
Okay.
It's a big number. Somebody's got to do it, obviously. Scoots is only 13.5 here. I don't really see anybody here as like playable. And for Brogdon, I assume they're just keeping him warm until he's gone. Like there's a 0% chance, barring aggressive injury, and even then, that Malcolm Brogdon plays for the Portland Trailblazers when this season ends. Where he ends up is a completely different story.
Agreed.
But boy, oh boy, they're going to be rough. Yeah, like the only reason I like, depending on how they want to treat, like if they treat Wemby with kid gloves, I think Scoot's just going to get the full diet for the entire year. I don't think they're going to be really slowing him down at all. He would be my alternative for the rookie of the year spot. I don't think it's going to be Chet because like that's just not how Oklahoma City is built. I think it's a 2-horse race. And one of those is a very skinny thoroughbred.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking, like, is there anybody else? There's other rookies I like. You know, I like Azir Thompson, but not in the same category. It's Wemby's award to lose, and it would probably take an injury.
Yeah. And then we get to the Clippers. Russell Westbrook, 21% owned on DraftKings at 6,500. Feels a tad high to me, but does look like he's in a good spot, particularly against this Portland team. Then you're getting Paul George healthy, Kawhi Leonard healthy, Ivica Zubac at center. He's 5,400. Add Ivica Zubac to the list of centers from 5K to 6K that are completely reasonable options. Looks like we're going to get Nick Batum or potentially Robert Covington as the final starter. I don't think it matters at all. I think whoever's starting is still only playing like 22 minutes. I don't like anything here for the Clippers.
The only guy I really like is Paul George is priced down on FanDuel at $8,400. So he's quite a bit cheaper there than on DK. Kawhi is 9,200 on DK. Paul George, 9,500 on DK. Whatever, they're guys. If you had them in a lineup or two, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Not priorities. Paul George, though, at 8,400 on FanDuel, I did get to him in 20% in my first run, and nothing else really from the Clippers. And that's FanDuel specific.
And that is the slate, folks. Do you want to sum up anything? We've been going for an hour and 24 minutes, and I've already put 2 hours in before this.
No, that's pretty much everything for me. I've got some meetings to get to, some other content to record.
I've got 2 contenders videos coming out and a prize picks video on our Odds Shopper channel if you're looking for it. I hope you caught that Odds Shopper prize picks video yesterday. 2 for 2. Picked up a dub. So that was nice to see. I certainly didn't pick up the dub in the DFS streets. It was nice to open up my prize picks account after not opening it for like a month and seeing that I still had a bunch of money in there that I didn't remember I had. It's always good. Fun stuff, man. 12-game slate. Myself and Spags will be back at 4:45 for the deeper dive. Greg and Eric back for live before lock tonight at 6 p.m. Sign up at Stochastic. Promo code TIPOFF. 20% off. Link in the description. Shout out to Bet365. Good luck, everybody. We're out of here. Peace.